This is an emergency broadcast transmission. This is not a test. This is an emergency broadcast transmission. This is not a test. Please remain calm.
Welcome to the How to Survive the Narcissist Apocalypse podcast. I am Chad the Impaler, and thank you for showing up this episode. And on this episode, we have Leyla. She is a narcissist abuse survivor. I interviewed her, and her story is pretty crazy. It involves her being married to a police officer and police abuse. It's a scary story, and she told her story quite well. But before we even get into that, let me just go over the regular little thing that we now do before our shows. And just to state that narcissism is a character trait that exists on a spectrum. A small amount of narcissism is healthy. A person with an unhealthy level of narcissism may be called a narcissist. This podcast, we refer to a narcissist as a person who exhibits narcissistic traits and is on a consistent pattern of maladaptive narcissistic behaviors, regardless of whether they meet the diagnostic criterion or have a formal diagnosis. A person may be referred to as a narcissist on this podcast, even if it is more likely that they have an other cluster B personality disorder, such as borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, or antisocial personality disorder. And now with that out of the way, I'm just trying to think of how my week was before we get into the podcast with our interview. And I just want to say that later this week, because I'm going to put out 2 this week, because the second one is more of is not a story. It's just a great informative episode where we did a question and answer where all you guys sent in the questions to a therapist that we got to be on the show. We had someone on. Her name was Shirin Pekar, and sorry, I didn't say her name properly. Shireen Pekar. And Shireen it's a great episode. She answers all of your questions. We went through close to somewhere between 15 and 18 questions that people sent in to us. It's a very informative episode. She answered them perfectly and clearly for everyone to understand. Hopefully we can get her back on. That'll be later this week. And so stick around for that one. That's going to come out pretty much probably on the Friday. And we're trying to get those informative ones out as fast as we can. So that is that. And besides that, I didn't do much this week. I did the podcast. I edited. You know, you guys don't want to hear about me. Actually, one more thing. I'm all over the place. One more thing. We started a Reddit group. So our subreddit, if you're on Reddit, look up Narcissist Apocalypse. That is what our subreddit is called. The N is capitalized and the A is capitalized on Apocalypse. If you're a Reddit person, we created a subreddit so we can all go on there and talk. We can do postings in the subreddit. If people aren't familiar with subreddit, it's kind of difficult for non-computer people to figure out at first. It's a little confusing, but once you're on there and you join the group, we can all interact with each other better, and maybe people who were once guests on the show can be on there and answer questions if they want to, give updates on their life, anything that's like that anyone wants to do. I'll pop up on Reddit hopefully a couple times a day just to see what's going on. I am a moderator there. I'm the only moderator. We already have 11 members after one day. I'll take that as good news. And then besides that, last thing before we get to the interview, and that's the second time I've said that. One of my friends, I was out the other day at a barbecue, and one of my friends said to me that they're like, they said to me, you're a certified coach. How come you never mentioned that on your show? And it was not part of why I started the show in the first place. So, and I don't do it professionally. I actually got certified for my own curiosity and well-being, to learn how to communicate better with other people and listen better. So anyway, they told me to say that on the show. So yeah, I am. And That's maybe I'll do that now for at the beginning of the shows, just to say I have some kind of qualification, just instead of being me, to sit here and listen and talk to you. But I just like being me anyway, and so should you. Now, let's just get to listening to Leyla and a story that is so hard to believe. You would only, like, if it was a movie, it would be hard to believe. But it was her real life. And now here is her story. So we are here today with a narcissist abuse survivor named Leyla. How are you doing today, Leyla?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking part on the show. We really appreciate it. And for everyone out there, you're about to hear an interesting story that involves Leyla, her marriage to a police officer, and the abuse that went with it. And it's a pretty scary situation because of the authority that this person had. And now I will get out of your way, and the floor is now yours, Leyla, to tell your story.
Where to begin? Well, my husband was very, very handsome. I actually met him because I lived alone, and I heard a noise in the backyard, and it scared me, and I called 911, and my husband was the one who showed up. But, you know, we didn't even know each other. And just super, super handsome, pretty blue eyes. And it was just love at first sight. But we didn't start dating right away. We became friends. He was dating a lawyer at the time. And so we maintained contact and eventually started dating. And everything was perfect. We were like madly in love. He would, now we both had children, so the dating wasn't, as frequent because we both had children. He had a kid, I had a kid. His daughter's like 12 and my son's like 10 at the time. And so we're going on these dates. Everything's fine. We didn't introduce the kids yet. And all is perfect. Didn't really notice anything. And I'm in nursing school. I have a house of my own. He just works. He has a house 30 minutes away. And he starts, I'd really like you to come live with me. I don't get to see you enough. And I'm like, well, I have my own house. I can come stay with you some, but, I do have my own house. So I didn't know, is he wanting me to pay half the bills? I wasn't sure. But anyways, I ended up staying there a lot. And then my son and I did eventually move in. And you know how they talk about these narcissists, how they're secretly working behind your back. And I never really paid attention to it, but he told someone that I had just moved myself into his house. Like, oh, she just moved in. And he's like, oh, and then I felt bad because, her and her son, he tried to make me look like some kind of charity case. I was not in need of his home, but that was like a little sign that I didn't pay attention to. I think it was my sister who told me. My sister's like, yeah, he just said you just moved in one day. So that was kind of like the beginning of his lie. He's like a pathological liar. So anyways, I'm living there, cooking, cleaning, decorating, and everything's good, except he's got this mom that lives 5 minutes away. And Chad, this is a whole nother thing. Not only is this man a narcissist, his entire family is like him. It's like an entire group of toxic people. It's like their family norm. And, I often think that his behaviors stem back to his relationship with his mother, and because she was very toxic too. So anyway, she lives 5 minutes away. During the day while I'm away, she comes pilfering through the house. And I don't know her. She hasn't come to talk to me, or, just when you meet someone, normally in a healthy relationship, like their family welcomes you in, speaks to you. So his mom, because it ended up being a lot of the fights we got into, and ultimately the final argument that resulted in him getting arrested pertained to his mother and daughter. But he had this bratty, spoiled child. She's doing horseback riding, gymnastics, all these privileges. And so here, my son's living here, and he's, seeing this. And I'm like, hey, can you, like, take Zach to do, gymnastics or karate or something? And so there was a big difference in the children's, what they had. One kid has all these things and the other one doesn't. And so that was something we would start arguing about. But I'm trying to think of just where it all started. I had a job at a club. He told me to quit my job at the club. He's like, I don't like you working there. And, if I had any guys' numbers in my phone, it didn't matter how old they were. My son had a little friend at school. They'd been best friends for years. Well, I was friends with her dad. No romantic interest, not attracted. He was significantly older. I mean, I was not allowed to even have the numbers dormant in my phone that belonged to males. So he became extremely possessive. I quit my job, and I was in nursing school, and I worked a job. I made really good money. So he made me quit the job. And then I'm like, well, how am I going to pay my tuition? And he said he would pull it out of his retirement. And so he did, and I agreed to pay him back in 4 months. That was the agreed upon date. So the next day, he lets me borrow the money. The next day, out of the blue, he accuses me of cheating on him. Not cheating on him at all, never did. And I just felt like, what are you even talking about? I felt like I was having to defend something that didn't even happen. There was no proof. I don't know. I think he just had regret about lending me the money, and so he just needed to find a reason to get it back. And so, long story short, I didn't have the money, and I wasn't going to have it for 4 months, and that's what I told him. So he stayed drunk all weekend. He was at his home. I was at mine, 30 minutes away. And he sends me this picture via text. It's his front door is kicked in. And then he sends me another picture text of his back all scratched up. And he says, why did you kick in my door? Why did you scratch my back? And I'm like, holy shit, the man is accusing me of something. I'm literally nowhere near him. And I'm starting to get scared because, Chad, I've never been to jail. And, like, I just haven't. And this is starting to scare me. And then the next day, he starts threatening me. He's like, I'm going to say you stole my credit card. He's like, why do you think I let you call and make the payment? And that scared me because that showed some premeditation there. Because when he gave me his debit card, he wanted me to call the school and pay it because he was driving, and I didn't really feel comfortable doing that. And I told him that, and he's like, no, I can't do it right now. I'm driving. But he did call the bank and have the amount approved because it was a significant amount of money. But right there is just the monster, like that you would premeditate setting someone up, and anything over, I think, like $1,000 is a felony. So this man's like accusing me. He's like, I'm going to say that you stole this card. And he's a cop, and I'm just, a nursing student working at this shady joint, at night. So who do you think they're going to believe? And it just really scared me. And so then he lets his mom and his brother in on what's going on. What do you call them? Like the little support people of the narcissist. Are those the flying monkeys?
Those are the flying monkeys, yeah.
Okay, so now he's got the flying monkeys involved in all of this. So he proceeds to tell them that I stole his card. And I mean, come on, I'm 30. How old was I at the time? 32 years old. Never been arrested. Never had committed any crime. And I'm 4 months to getting a second bachelor's degree. Why in the world would I do something? I wouldn't. But, with these types of flying monkeys, they don't ever come to you, because this is what I experienced. They never came to me and said, hey, what's your version of this story? No one ever asked me. And I think in a situation like this, with people like this, I think one of the biggest things that really frustrated me is you lose your voice. I mean, I just felt like I didn't even have a voice. And so he started a group text with them, and he was telling them that I stole this card. And the mom wrote back, get rid of her son. And who says get rid of someone like they're an object? And that's why I think the mother's really a big part of why he is such a narcissist, and he just discards people the way he does. Because I noticed the way that she would speak to him, and she's like, get rid of her. Well, I'm a human being. Thank you. You don't just get rid of people. So she told him to get rid of me. And then the brother's like, what a fucking bitch. You need to call the school and tell the school, and a lot of nursing programs will kick her out. Chad, I had lived a very poor life. My parents were not college educated. Food stamps, welfare, Goodwill, clothes, the whole 9 yards. And so, I've really had to just fight like hell to get where I'm at. And you have these people that are just like, let's ruin her. And no one even called me to see what the hell was going on. And really, it was just he had stayed drunk all weekend. But that was his go-to, was like scare tactics when he didn't get his way. And so I had a friend who was a police officer, and I sent him all these screen grabs, and I'm like, I am terrified right now. Like, what do I do? I'm like, I'm scared someone's going to come arrest me right now. And he's like, okay, this is what you need to do, because my boyfriend, husband, at the time he was my boyfriend, he didn't work in the city that he lived in. So this guy's like, you need to call the county he works in and call and speak to a supervisor and do what's referred to as a call log. And Chad, a call log is just like, it's confidential. Only certain people have access to it. So no one really knows that it exists, but it's really just a documentation of an incident. And so anyone who's going through anything like this is certainly like an option. And so a crime hadn't really been committed here, and that I had been assaulted or that he actually went through with it. But it was just in case a detective comes to the house to arrest me or something, hey, this call log, I called and I was over here, and, it can show where the call was made from. So anyways, that's what I did. I called and had a call log done. But when he started threatening to call my school, that was when I had enough, because everyone at my school knew him. They knew he was a cop, and I'm just like, I can't even. It was the fact that he was going to plant the seed of doubt in people's minds. So I went ahead and called his department where he worked, and I told them what had happened. And that's conduct unbecoming of an officer. You can't go around accusing people of stuff they didn't do just to get what you want. So they calmed him down. Long story short, he reverted back to the love bombing. So he took me to Charleston for the weekend, and spent $1,000 on this really nice. I mean, we had like the honeymoon suite at this beach resort, and of course our sexual relationship was very, very active and very, very good. And so, here we are back to being together, and everything's fine. And that's what he would do a lot. He would take me on vacations, or, just, I don't know, but that was just one of the major stories. And so now the family thinks I've stolen this credit card. They continue to treat me really awful, which really affected our relationship with each other. And you know what? I don't know how long, he's been talking bad about me to them or making up lies. No wonder they never spoke to me. They thought I was a crazy person. And by the time I was out of this relationship, that's how I felt, like I had gone crazy.
So from that point of when the trip happened, how long until you got married?
Let's see.
And I assume that during that period, so I'm sure during that period, he was on his best behavior for that next 6 months until you got married, or did things happen in between there as well?
Oh my gosh, no. And it's almost embarrassing telling this story, because the one thing I get is, didn't you see red flags before? Yes, people. I did see red flags. But, I say to people, I had battered wife syndrome before I was even a battered wife. So I told you I quit that job. He didn't like this job that I had. It was at a club. And so once I was moved in, living there, he would get in these rages at night. He would accuse me of cheating. And I'm talking like a man's phone number's in my phone, in my call log, just like how you have numbers. I haven't called anyone. I'm not speaking to anyone. I just wasn't even allowed to have guys' numbers in my phone. And so at nighttime, he would get in these rages. And it was when, the kids weren't around. And he would start screaming at me and barricade me in the bathroom and accuse me of cheating. And I didn't know what to do, because at this point, everyone knows that we're together. Usually things are good between us, and then he has these rages. And so he was accusing me of stuff I didn't do. And at first, when he would act this way, I was just in such shock, because I've never been in a relationship this abusive. So I just sat there in shock. I didn't know what to say. And, and then he would apologize. Sometimes he would even cry a little bit. Oh, I'm so sorry. And so, once he had his rage and got out what he needed to get out, all was good. And I didn't really know how to get out at that point. I still loved him. All my stuff was there. So I would have had to call my dad to come help me move. And then, the social media aspect of it. You've got to get on social media and change your relationship status. And I think just caring what people think, sometimes keeps you in really bad places. So that's no more either. I just really don't care at this point. But I lived there with him, and when the kids weren't around, it was like he would degrade me. He would accuse me of doing things I didn't do. You're just such a low-life slut, a whore, you're stupid, just all these awful things. And so that's where the breakdown is. They break you down first, because I wasn't really being, I don't know. I wasn't being viciously physically attacked, but he was breaking me down. My self-esteem, he was just chipping away at it. And whenever we get in an argument at his house, he would throw all my belongings out in the yard. And, my stuff would break. He just, no regard for me, no respect for me. And I'm just thinking, is this even normal? So I go out there and pick all my stuff up off the ground, throw it in my car, and drive to my house, because I have a house. And he would show up, Chad, and he would just, such a charmer. I'm so sorry. You're the love of my life. You're the one. I just don't know why things are so difficult, because you're in school right now. He was just such a smooth operator. And I fell back into the trap every single time, because at the time I didn't know what this was. And now that I've read these books, I'm like pissed, because it's very by the book behaviors that he was doing to me. So I'd go back. He would stay. I guess he would behave. Maybe a week is the longest he could go, because these people aren't real. The person I fell in love with wasn't even real. Mm-hmm. So once I saw who he really was, and then I would leave, and then he would love bomb me, and I would come back. He could only behave for about a week, and then I'll tell you, he would minimize my concerns. This is another thing. They minimize things when you try to talk to them. I would decorate his home, and it was a total bachelor pad, and I just like things to be pretty. So I was decorating, and I walked by the daughter's room, and the daughter is in the room on the phone with her mom. And I'm always nice to the daughter, do nice things for her that I don't need to or have to, just trying to bond. This was at like the 8-month mark, I guess. And I walk by her room and I hear her on the phone with her mother, and she's like, I didn't know why Maria thinks she can decorate the house. This is me and Daddy's house. And, the mom's like, well, where is she right now? Like, can she hear you? I don't care. If she comes to my room, I'll slap her in the face. And so, I tell him about this, what I heard. And, I'm really mad about this because this child has me thinking that she likes me. And the entire time she's been talking bad about me. And so when she gets off the phone, Chad, she comes out and she's like, what you guys doing? With a big smile on her face. So the manipulation, the child's even doing it. She's learned it from her dad.
Oh yeah, like you can't blame her. I mean, she has a narcissistic father, her grandparents,
and grandmother. Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
Like she has no chance.
Well, and so that's what I have started to realize. Because at first I'm like, when she first started doing these things, and you have to understand, she went around to his entire family talking bad about me simply because she was jealous or didn't want to share. And it made me so angry. Now, I was always nice to her, but, I never really addressed it with her. And I always went to her dad and was like, hey, like, this is what she was doing. This is what she was saying. Anyway, he told me, and this is typical of them too, well, you shouldn't have been at the door listening. Mm-hmm. So it became my fault. And, we would get into it over the children, particularly over his daughter being so hateful to my son and I. Very hateful child. But again, Chad, she learned from the best of the best. She learned from her father and her narcissistic grandmother. And so she really doesn't, she stands a chance, but only if she gets therapy before she's a young adult. And
how did your son function in all of this? How have you spoken to him about what's happened? And
I not no.
Mm-hmm. But did he? So he got it from. He didn't get along with her. Did he get along with your husband?
He got along with both of them. He did, and I didn't tell him. So obviously he knows we got divorced. And, I just told him, I don't get along with him or his daughter, and it just wasn't working. He's like, okay.
Okay, so that's good that he was kind of shielded from what was going on behind the scenes, because I guess it was all behind the scenes mostly when he wasn't there.
It was. Well, and you have to keep in mind, this guy, he's not wanting to lose his career. Mm-hmm. And so he's not going to be body slamming me to the ground and restraining me to the ground with witnesses around. And so that was a good thing for my child, though, because he was never around for it. He wasn't going to see it. And, he knew, my son knew there was a few little problems, but we typically weren't we weren't yelling or screaming around the children. It would be on a typical work night, his daughter's with the mother, my son's with my dad, because we both have to be up extremely early and we can't take the children to school anyways. So it would be those times when the kids were out of the house that he would just really just do whatever he wanted to me. And it usually pertained to him saying something nasty to me, tearing me down. And when I go to leave the house, falsely imprisons me. Like, he won't let me leave. He takes my phone, he throws it across the room, so I can't call for help. And body slams me to the ground because I'm wanting to leave. Like, he's polluting my emotional health. Like, I'm not going to stand here and let you just say these nasty things to me that I know aren't true. And so as I go to leave, this is one of the things it was a very common thing for him to do to me. He would I would lose my footing. And he would body slam me to the ground. He would take my feet out from under me, body slam me to the ground, get hold of both of my wrists and restrain me to the floor. And he would put his face on my face and just say whatever he wanted to say, whatever nasty, degrading things he wanted to say, he would say them, and I just could not get up. I was just stuck. And when I would finally get up, I feel so violated, just so upset over it. And I look at myself and I'm like, I don't have a mark on me. Chad, I don't have a mark on me. The man just body slammed me to the ground. You can't call the police with no mark on you. And, you know, like, he really chipped away at the self-esteem is like the main thing that he did to me. And then there was the cheating. I don't know when the cheating started. I know that when we would get in fights, he would mention other women, like, oh, I should just go be with so-and-so. And I remember we were actually on vacation in Florida. We'd stayed at a Gloria Stefan hotel, beautiful hotel, like just paradise all week. It was sunny. It was beautiful. We're out on the beach. And that's the thing with these people, whether things are good or bad, he was cheating no matter what. And his primary thing was Snapchat. That's the thing that I would always catch him on. And, you know, we're at the beach having a good time. We get back to the hotel, and he's, like, really tired. I don't know if he drank too much or what, but he goes in and he passes out. He left his cell phone in the car, which is, like, highly unusual. It's always glued to him. And so I'm sitting there texting my friend, and all of a sudden his phone goes, you know, a little beep or something, and I look, and, you know, it's locked. But Chad, he had it set so, like, if he got a Snapchat message, it would show up on the screen. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. And so here the Snapchat comes through, and it's from his ex-girlfriend. And so anyways, I took it upstairs. I made him open the phone. And it was just like he'd obviously sent her a picture. But here we are. The point being, here we are on vacation. It's one of the rare occasions where we're not in an argument, and here he is. He had sent her a picture of the beach. Like, you're on vacation with me and you're thinking of your ex-girlfriend. But it was just always things like that. The cheating was just a constant. Once I caught him, it just remained, you know, the cheating, the devaluing, the discarding. I can't tell you how many times he threw my stuff out in the yard. I even had landscaped his yard one time, and I bought like 5 boxwoods, and he got mad at me, and he wanted me to leave. And so he's screaming, raging, and I get out to my car, and he yanks these boxwood bushes out of the ground. You know, they have this root ball on them, all this dirt attached. He opens my car door and slings 5 boxwoods into my car. And while I'm gathering my stuff, because he's telling me that I need to just all of a sudden move out abruptly, he slams me up against the wall by my throat. And when I get out to the car and he's throwing these boxwoods in my car and he's acting crazy, I call 911, and the dispatcher's like, have you been assaulted? And I'm like, I can't answer that. And she goes, have you been assaulted? I go, I can't answer that. She goes, well, stay in your car and lock the doors. And I do. And so the police get there. And, you know, really what I'm wanting is my son had picture day the next day, and I bought this really nice outfit for him at the mall. And it's like 8 o'clock at night now. Like, the only thing open is Walmart if I can't get this outfit out of the house. And so the police come, and they see the bushes in my car. They see the holes in the ground where he pulled 5 boxwoods just out of the ground like a lunatic. And I'm wanting to go in the house and get my son's clothes. He wouldn't let me get my son's clothes out of the house. And so the police are there, and I'm covering up my neck at this point with my hair. I wouldn't even tell on him. I would not even tell on this man. And they're like, have you been assaulted? No, I'm okay. And I'm covering up my neck because it's got these marks on it from where he's flung me up against the wall. And so it's it's partly my fault. I wouldn't tell. But I mean, I'm thinking, why didn't they just ask me to move my hair back a little bit? when you're like battered up and stuff, you're protecting the person. I don't know why. I don't know why we protect them. I just know we do, because I did. And so, long story short, they wouldn't even let me. The police are like, you don't live here. So I'm like, I live here. All my stuff's here. They're like, do you pay bills here? And I'm like, no, I have a house. I don't pay bills here, but I've been living here for so-and-so months. Well, here in the state of North Carolina, man, if you don't pay bills here, and they're clearly one of them knows him and they're big buddies. But what would it have hurt for them to go in the house and get my son's outfit? And then, so this is like the funny part is after they left, I left and I just went to Walmart and got an outfit. And he, of course, apologized the next day. And I got his work phone and I went through his work phone. And that officer who's come to the house had actually texted him and told him, hey, don't worry, I won't tell anyone about this. I know it's really embarrassing. And, you should get a restraining order against her. She's going to cost you your job. So here I'm the victim. I was the one who was flung up against a wall by my throat, which the cop doesn't know. But even not knowing that, all my stuff is all over the yard. I'm talking underwear on top of my car. He threw my panties on top of the car. Bushes in the car. Anything glass is broken on the driveway. And the cop, his friend, feels it's appropriate to say, hey, you need to get a restraining order on her. I mean, that's what they just stick together. So I'm like, oh, well, I guess I won't be calling the cops anymore. But then where do we get to? We get to marriage. I was going to move away because I'd really kind of felt like I had enough. And we weren't engaged. He kept like, oh, we'll get engaged. We're engaged. Finally got engaged. He went out and bought me a really pretty ring. Had a marriage. We got married on the beach in Charleston. It was really pretty. And we bought a really nice house, a really expensive house. And that's when the abuse got really, really bad. And I know I've heard about, when you get married, it gets worse. It always gets worse. Well, for me, that's what happened. It got 10 times worse. So maybe he would hit me once a month or grab me once a month or this or that. Now it's turned into 3 times a week. And the incident where he would get the worst is around the holidays. So it's like Thanksgiving's approaching. And we spend it with my family. Try to have some of my family members are really nice. And so the ones that we were spending Thanksgiving with were really nice. And so they came over and they had Thanksgiving with us. And I'll tell you, I wasn't having Thanksgiving with his mom. I couldn't stand her. The last time I'd had dinner with her, she told me I needed to get rid of my cats. And so, anyways, we had it with my family. And so I'm wondering what he's telling his family because I don't ever hear from them. And so I look at his phone and he tells them that he's working. It's like, oh, I can't come to Thanksgiving dinner. I'm working. So he's lying to them, telling them that he's working on Thanksgiving. He had a Facebook and an Instagram. He didn't post any pictures on either one. So he's just living this double life. He's just, I don't know what he's told them, or maybe he told them we broke up or we're not together or we're getting divorced. I don't know, but he was always living a double life, even before we got married. And so, he'd either deactivate his social media accounts when he wanted to live this double life, or he would just not post anything. So he told the family he's at work. We're having Thanksgiving dinner together. He's upset because he's not spending it with his mom. And for the next couple of days, he started drinking even more than he normally did. And we went out to dinner. He started drinking at home. I wasn't ever really a big drinker, so I was typically the driver. So he starts drinking. What do you mix with Coke? What's the alcohol guys like to mix with Coke?
Like Jack Daniels?
Yeah, like Jack Daniels. So he got a big bottle of Jack Daniels, and I'm getting ready. We're at the house. He's drinking. We're going to go out on a date. And half the bottle of Jack Daniels is gone before we even leave the house. And so we go to like Carrabba's. I think that's where we were going, Carrabba's. And we sit down and everything's like going good. And then he said something really offensive to me. And I think he like said something about my son being a crybaby or something. And I just I pushed my food away. The food didn't even get there. I think I was eating the bread. I was eating the bread, and I just kind of pushed it away and went out to the car. And we got into it in the restaurant. I mean, we weren't like screaming or anything. It was just one of those like quiet, little, this dinner's done. The food hasn't even come yet. So I go to wait in the car for him. And he comes to the car and he's just, you can just tell him his demeanor. He's just mad as hell. And he gets in the car and he slams the door so hard, I thought the door was going to break off of the vehicle. And we're driving home and we're arguing about this conversation that we had. And I talk with my hands sometimes, and I'm talking with my hands. He's like, if you touch me, I swear to God, I'll bash your head in. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not touching you. I'm just talking, not touching you. But it was just, he had been putting his hands on me for 6 months. And so that's the nervy part here too. So you can body slam me and sling me up against walls and, do all these things to me. And if I touch you first, it's like not allowed. I mean, not that I did, but it's just the nerve. Like you can go do this to people all the time, but if someone does it to you, it's just not acceptable. You're going to bash their head in. So we get home and we're in the room and we're fighting, and I'm telling him about his mom. I'm like, you're just mad because you didn't get to have Thanksgiving with that. And I said some not nice stuff about her. I mean, the lady told me to get rid of my cats. Like, don't worry about my animals. I have 2 cats. She doesn't like cats. She thinks they're filthy, which is really none of her business. But we were into it about just everything. The daughter being mean to me and my son, the grandma being nasty to me. And we got into it, and I said something about his mom. I think I called her like a bitch or something. Told her, to go to hell. And that's when he hit me. I was in the closet gathering my clothes to move out for the 100th time. And while I'm trying to gather my clothes, he's taking all my stuff and he's throwing it out on the porch. This is like one of the main things, was throwing my belongings out in the yard. It's become like a normal. So he takes my wedding dress. I have this beautiful wedding dress, an Eve of Milady wedding dress. He throws it out on the lawn. All my clothes are out in the yard. And so I'm still in the closet, and I get up, and he's yelling at me. And then, bam, he smacks me as hard as he can in the face with a coat hanger. And I was like, I've never been hit with an object, as an adult by a man. And so I'm like, this is new. This hasn't happened before. So I go to run out of the house because at this point I'm scared. Like I'm scared. And I go to run out of the house and he yanks me by my hair. And, yanks my hair about 3 times as hard as he can. And then he finally just picks me up because I'm like 105 pounds, 5'4", not very big. And he just picks me up and carries me to the door and shoves me out the door. And I had my cousin come over. My cousin came over, and because he was friends with him, and he was really mad. He's like, look at her face. Look what you've done to her. And I was wanting to call the cops. And he's like, don't do that. If you call the cops, we'll both go to jail. Well, I don't know why the hell I would go to jail. He didn't have any marks on him. I didn't touch him. Normally, Chad, I might fight back. And when I say fight back, I just mean like, if he had me restrained to the ground, if I could get one hand loose. Now, remember in the beginning, I was just such in shock. I just would sit there and cry or just not know what to do. And as time progressed and the abuse continued, I started to to fight back. And when I say fight back, I just mean if I could get one hand loose, I would scratch his face. Like I would literally, because that was all I could get to, is scratch his face. And, you know, once he got off, that was it. It wasn't like I would continue. You know, it wasn't coming from a place of like anger. It's coming from a place of like, I need to set myself free. And so when he would go to work, you know, he'd tell a couple of his buddies, look at my face. She scratched my face. She's abusive too. And so for a brief moment there, you know, until I started going to therapy, he had me convinced that defending myself was abuse. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did leave. And that's how he convinced me not to call the police. Because any assault that he initiated that I combated and left a mark, he had me convinced we would both go to jail. Mm-hmm. And if there's no video footage, no witnesses, no nothing, it's our word against each other. You know, it's just my word against his. And both people can go to jail. And that was scary to me too. And so on this particular night, I finally had him. As far as like, you did this to me, there's not a shadow of a doubt. But I went to bed. I didn't call the cops. He had taken my phone for a few minutes and convinced me not to call the cops. He said that we would both go to jail and that we would both lose our jobs. And, you know, I'm a nurse. He's a cop. I just graduated, had become a nurse, was working as a nurse. And I'm just like, I'm not even going to take a chance on losing my job. And so I didn't call. And he gets up the next morning. He doesn't apologize. I go downstairs to sleep in a separate room. He stays upstairs. He goes to work at like 6:45 in the morning, gets in his little cop SUV, and drives off. And then he comes home about a few hours later. I'm still in bed. And he packs a suitcase. And this is what they do too. Just like, why are you packing a suitcase? Like here, he did something awful, terrible to me. And the psychological mind screwing they do with you. This man is pretending like I've done something wrong and he's got to pack a suitcase to leave. And where do you think he's going, Chad? My biggest fan's house. His mother. Yeah. I cannot stand that lady. So he packs his suitcase, he leaves, and I'm just laying in bed, and I'm just like, you know, I've been dealing with this for 6 months, maybe 8, and I'm like, what's going to happen to him? I'm like, he's never been on food stamps or welfare, or, you know, his daughter has these braces, you know, my son, you know, I couldn't afford braces. And I'm like, I just worked so hard. And now I've just gotten into this terrible abusive relationship. And I'm like, we're going to get divorced. I'm probably going to lose a little money out of this house we purchased. And things are going to be harder for my son and I, not easier. And I'm like, he's just going to proceed doing this to people. And his uniform. I mean, he's really, really handsome, especially in that uniform. And I'm just like, that can't happen. Like, this man cannot continue doing this. And so I call the police. I don't call his police department. I call the sheriff's department, and I just tell them, I'm like, I just need to know what to do. I'm like, my husband keeps hurting me. He keeps assaulting me. And every time I try to call and get help, he tells me we're both going to go to jail. Is that true? Well, ma'am, yeah, that is true. I mean, you know, if both people have marks on them, that can happen. And he's like, I tell you what, why don't you come in and talk to me? And so I did. I told him, you know, over the phone, I'm like, yeah, you know, my husband's a police officer, and last night he hit me in the face with a coat hanger really hard, and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't even think about it, Chad. All of this was being recorded. In addition to, they have this system where they can look up your number and find out who you are. So they already knew who I was, even though I had called anonymously, because I still wasn't sure if I wanted to tell on him. And so I go in and I see, you know, I've got marks on me from that coat hanger, and I actually had bruises in my ears too. They were about 3 days old. But one of the main points I'd wanted to talk about was when a police officer does this, and this is in my experience, it could be different for other people, but he was very premeditated in the physical violence, in that he would typically do things that would not leave physical evidence. And that's what makes it so tricky about, like, getting help or proving that it's happening, or, he would pull my hair. That didn't leave evidence. He would drag me around by my ears. When he'd get mad, he'd grab my ears and just fling me around the house. And that typically didn't leave evidence. Now, he had done it so many times one week, because I told you, once we got married, the abuse just got way, way worse. And so he'd grab me by my ears and he'd flung me around the house. And I think he'd done it about 3 times that week. And so that normally wouldn't have left bruises, but it did this time. He'd done it so many times. And so the body slamming, the restraining, the false imprisonment when you're trying to leave and they're keeping you there. Trying to think what else. Oh, and one time he even held me upside down by my ankles. Like, he grabbed me off the bed, held me upside down by my ankles, and told me he was going to drop me on my fucking head. Now, granted, I was only like, a few feet off the ground. It probably wouldn't have really hurt me. But I mean, who does that? Who holds someone upside down by their ankles and threatens to drop them on the head? And again, no physical evidence with any of these things I've just talked about. So anyways, I get there. I have marks all over me. They take a police report. I must have been there like 5 hours. I think they had me retell the story 1,000 times. And so he gets arrested, and it's all over the news for 3 days. And it was so embarrassing because I hadn't told anyone what was going on. I had kept it a secret. And so while they didn't list my name on the news outlets, everyone knew that was my husband. And so I'm working at the hospital, and everyone at work knows. They were nice enough not to say anything. But it was just what happened after his arrest that just, he had a no contact order in place, and he was in jail for 3 days. And when he got out, I was at a gas station. So one of the copings to get through all of this has been a lot of smoking. I hate to admit that. I really do. But I haven't been able to sleep for a while now. And so I was parked at a gas station off of a pretty popular highway. And I'm just sitting there smoking. And he pulled up next to me. Either he knew me that well, or he had some kind of like tracking device on my phone or something. I don't know. And he pulled up next to me, and he's like, "I'm sorry." And
you must have been you must have been scared to death when he pulled up next to you.
I almost died. I didn't know what to think, but I was sitting at a well-lit gas station right in the front. So it was just very unexpected because this wasn't even a gas station that I would go to a lot. And so I was just in shock, really in shock that he would violate a no-contact order. And it really just in shock. And I'm thinking to myself, he's going to be mad as hell that he went to jail. And it was pretty embarrassing. I mean, he was arrested at work. So, it wasn't like... So, yes, I was. To answer your question, yes, I was. And he apologized. And it really caught me off guard because I'm like, wait, he apologized? He's not mad? So this is the person, I'm sorry. I just want to say this is the person that's not real. So he's saying he's sorry, and at the time I'm believing it. But now that I'm out of the situation, I can look back and say that was the mask. He was not sorry, but he said he was sorry, and I believed him. And I was very surprised. And he said they took my phone. I'm like, who took your phones? He's like, the sheriff's department took my phones. They took my work phone. They took my private phone. He's like, do not text those phones. Because, Chad, again, when the text message comes through, it shows on the screen, even if the phone's locked. So the detective who has these phones can at least read portions of a text that's not too long, if that makes sense. So he tells me to have his phones. he would not, so the entire investigation, he would not release the passcodes to these phones. But anyway, so he tells me not to text these phones. He went to Walmart and bought one of those like Verizon $50 phones, and he gave me the number to it. And he told me to call him or whatever. And which I don't think I did. But he left. He's staying at his mom's house. I'm staying at our house. And he starts texting me, and, I didn't tell on him. And now that I think about it, I guess maybe I should have. But, every time this man gets arrested, it's going to be on local news. And so that was embarrassing to me. So there was a couple reasons why I didn't call, but, it was just embarrassing to me every time he ended up on the news. And I knew that if he violated that no contact order, he would be arrested again. And I'm just very confused at this point. I don't know if I want him to lose his job. I really feel kind of sorry for him. And so, just a lot of confusion is what I felt. A part of me was mad. A part of me was sad. A part of me didn't want him to lose his job. A part of me. And so Internal Affairs calls me. This is about a week after he'd gotten out of jail. They call me. These are the people that investigate officers at his work. And they call me and they're like, I'm sorry that you've gone through this. I'm sure, it's been a very traumatic event, but we wanted to call and get a statement from you. And I said, no. I said, I'm not giving a statement. I really just want to be left alone. And so what happened to him had happened to him. And maybe they'll fire him, maybe they won't, but I didn't want to help them fire him. So I didn't give a statement. I was trying to have mercy on this person. And so he works on me so the hearing is like in 3 weeks. And it's not like the actual where we're going to be testifying. It's just to do like some logistics stuff, when will be the actual hearing. So it's basically a hearing to schedule another.
So it's 3 weeks from now.
Yeah, it's 3
okay.
It's about 3 weeks. Yeah, so about 3 weeks from the date of the arrest. 3 or 4 weeks. Let me see.
So this is really fresh.
Well, it happened November 27th or 28th of 2018, and then it was pretty fresh. It still is kind of fresh to me, but he was arrested at the end of November. But from the time of the arrest,
but you're still like this. I mean, you're still married to him.
Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah. So you're still really like this situation is still going on for you right now. So how throughout this are you coping or getting through this while it's still, because it's hard to get any sort of closure or move on while this is still going on. What's going on with you and how are you dealing with everything?
Well, let me see. I'll tell you at first, it was so stressful. I really had no appetite. I stopped eating. I think I lost about 20 pounds. I mean, by the time so that was in North Carolina. By the time I got to Florida, which is where I'm living now, I looked like a cancer patient. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. So the biggest things I noticed was my lack of appetite and how much weight I had lost, and then the sleep. I literally could not sleep. And it made it hard to function, because I worked these long 12, 13-hour shifts on about 4 hours of sleep. I found myself staying up till about 3 a.m. So when I got to Florida, I took about a month off because I just was so traumatized. I was so scared at this point by what had preceded that arrest and just the different things that had happened. He was not sorry, and it got very, very scary. He, filed a false police report. Something bad happened to me. So by the time I get here, I'm just basically, I feel like I'm just trying to live. So the first thing I do is, and I'm crying. I'll be driving and I'll just start crying to the point where I can't even drive the car. And I'm just so upset. And there's just no one that I even know that has even gone through anything like this for me to even talk to. So, Chad, the first thing I did is I just looked up like a counselor. I'm like, I need to go to therapy. And so I came across this guy that specialized in like domestic abuse counseling and, like personality disorder. So anyways, I started going to him, and it didn't really, I feel like it was nice to have someone to talk to, but it didn't really help. The first couple sessions were just someone to talk to, he was just there to listen. And now, I've been doing it for 3 months now. So now it has started to help, because now we've really delved into what got me into this, why did I stay into this, and so I just had to ask, what the hell was wrong with me to think that being treated that way was okay? A healthy person would have never tolerated that. And so I'm like, something's not healthy in me that I kept allowing this behavior to go on, maybe once or twice. But when someone keeps doing stuff like that and you just tolerate it, so I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me, because the main goal here moving forward is to never get into this again. And if I am to encounter someone like him or a relationship like that, is to get out right away and not make excuses for it. And so, I've just been going to therapy, a lot of chain smoking going on. My sleep schedule is still a little bit altered. My son and I, so my son's not with me right now. He went to go see his dad. Now, me and my husband, we don't have children together. So my son is with his dad right now. But when he was here a couple weeks ago, we've been fishing a lot. And I find that fishing, of all things, never been a fisher or whatever. I don't ever go fishing. That's what I've been doing. Fishing, riding my bike. And the most helpful thing, I guess, through all of this is just reading books on this man and on what happened here. Because when I started reading these books, Chad, that's when I really realized what was going on. I'd never heard of a narcissist. I didn't know what that was. I'm 33. I've never, I don't know, maybe I heard of one. I just never knew what they were. And so I've been reading these books like Healing from Hidden Abuse or Whole Again. I've just got all these books that I've been reading. And what I found is that when I was reading them, I was getting really angry. I say I was getting angry because this man, the things he did to me are in this book. The things his family did to me are in this book. Everything he did was by the book. And had I known anything about this, I guess I would have known sooner.
Can you tell me what that book is, so everyone out there can hear what it is, so they might, if they're in the same situation, they might want to go ahead and get it?
Sure. So one of the books is by Shannon Thomas. It's called Healing from Hidden Abuse, A Journey Through the Stages of Recovery from Psychological Abuse. And so it really deals with abuse from, my part of it was in the relationship, but it could be a relationship, a friendship, a parental relationship. But I like this book because it talked about the toxic person's family and how they target the victim. And so you really feel outnumbered sometimes in a situation like this. And when you have no support and you feel outnumbered, so his whole family's mistreating me. They're all talking bad about me. And you just feel like it's the crazy making. You feel like maybe you are wrong. And then let's see. Another book I got was Whole Again, Healing Your Heart and Rediscovering Your True Self After Toxic Relationships and Emotional Abuse. And that one's by Jackson McKenzie. And so I get these books on Amazon, but that's been the biggest thing. The biggest thing, because you feel crazy. You feel like it's your fault. A lot of people don't understand. You can't talk to them about it. It makes them uncomfortable. And so just reading these books has been very helpful to me and just educating myself on this. And
how's your support system now that you're in Florida? Do you have, did you move there because you had friends there, or is it just like a brand new start and it was far away from North Carolina?
Well, it's far away from North Carolina. My mom lives here, not really close to her. I mean, she's okay. But no, I had no friends here, no job here. I told you, Ted, I was scared this man was like going to plant drugs in my car or something. It got to the point where he was so mad that I told on him that he was out for blood.
Mm-hmm. So it was a lot for safety and the law. You know, he doesn't know any cops there. He's not connected to anyone there, and you can be away.
Yeah, so. Yeah, see, there's no way that I could be arrested based off of one of his falsified police reports or have drugs planted in my vehicle. I mean, these were the things at the end. Like, he was so angry because it looked like it was a big possibility that he would lose his career. And so he was never sorry for what he did, Chad. He was sorry that he got caught. And the sorry was a way of manipulating me. So he worked on me up until those hearings to have me first lift that no contact order. Once that's lifted, now he's coming in, being all nice, trying to get me not to testify, trying to get me to go into IA and say that never happened. And when those things didn't happen, when I didn't do those things, it became full-blown blackmail, falsified police reports, just anything he could do to severely impact my life. It didn't matter if it was a lie. And so when a cop starts lying to punish someone and to falsify police reports, it just got so scary. So no, I'm not close to my mom. I don't know anyone here. And I'm just like, I've got to get the hell out of North Carolina before this guy really impacts my life. I'm like, what if he goes in the, because we have this house, and that was one of the issues that made it hard to leave. We owned a home, and so I'm ready to get out. Like, I want to leave. He's like, not yet. I have plans. And, to sell a home, you have to have both owners sign the listing agreement. He wouldn't sign it. And so he finally signed it, but I mean, after how many months? And because the mortgage was so high on this house, now, again, he'll have people thinking that I'm crazy, that I'm toxic, that he had to keep me up. Those things are just so far from the truth. Our house, I paid half the bills. And so the mortgage was really expensive. I'm paying half the bills, but one of us has a lot of student loan debt and this and that, and the other doesn't. So he had more money. But yet we're splitting the mortgage right down the middle, and it was killing me. 60 hours a week I'm having to work. But the point being, I had a financial obligation to pay half of this mortgage because my credit, and I wanted to maintain my good credit. Well, Chad, I can't live in this house, pay this mortgage, or maybe people are like, well, go rent somewhere. How can you rent somewhere when all your money's going into your bills on this house? And so I was just really felt so trapped. But I did escape. I mean, I made my great escape. I just got the hell out of there. I didn't have a job lined up. Didn't know anybody. And so when I got down here, it was difficult. I'm not close to my mother. We've just never had a close relationship. I have a family member that I was really close to, but she's a terrible drug addict now. And, there's really no support system down here. Mm-hmm. I'm close to my dad. He's stuck in North Carolina still until he sells his properties. So that was hard too, just having no support system down here.
You're working?
I am. I got a job at the hospital.
So you're working. So you're working there, and I guess the next step for you is get this case settled, have it over. Somehow force a divorce, if that as fast as possible, and then from that point work on moving on, or really beginning the healing process.
Yes, and so we are legally separated. I guess after years pass, it'll be an automatic divorce. And as far as his job, I don't know if he will be terminated. The last I heard, they said For me, Chad, like, I want justice. I didn't get to testify because he was threatening me, and he had me so scared. And so, you know, my therapist wants me to come to terms with the fact that there may not be justice. And so I guess I'll have to accept that. But, you know, I'm just like, I do believe in karma, and I think that whether he gets terminated or not, you can't get away with doing this to people. It just feels, it's just so, I don't know if I've verbalized well just what I've gone through.
You have.
But it's just so, it's just so life-shattering. And I don't know. I don't know what healing looks like. To me, I can at least tell my story now without crying, and I can drive down the road without crying so bad that I have to pull the car over. And so I feel like I am making progress, but I don't know. It seems like it lessens a little each day. And so I'm just thinking maybe a year from now, it'll just be, I won't really feel anything at all. But I really just want people to know, if you're in a situation like this, it's just, I had to read these books on it, and I wasn't the problem. He had me convinced I was the problem. I wasn't the problem. And he didn't treat me like a human being. I mean, the things he said to me, and it always starts off, the verbal abuse, and there's just such a pattern here. First, they have to chip away at your self-esteem, and then they put their hands on you, or they don't. But, you know, emotional abuse is just as bad. And I think that's the part that I'm having the hard time with, is just undoing all that brainwashing that he did to me. And so I think that needs to be a big part of the healing process, is just undoing the brainwashing. Because, you know, I dated him for years. And the abuse started probably 6-7 months after we started dating. And so I've just, for years, have been told these things that so many times a part of me believes them to be true. So yeah, I mean, I'm doing okay. I got a job. I bought a house. And, you know, life is okay.
Well, it sounds like, you know, you've started a good part of the healing process to get to where you are now. In this situation, I mean, this episode for everyone, I think is going to help a lot of people. The way you told your story, and all of the abuse you endured, but also how to explain to everyone who's not involved in these situations, or may be involved in situations, that this happens. People stay in it for a long time, and there's no shame in that at all. There's, you know, the person has sucked you in, and you're in that world, and it's hard to get out of once you're in it. And now that you're on the other side, I think it's inspiring. I think your story is going to be very inspiring to people. That you went through so much and got to the other side, and the way you told your story, and in a very, you know, we had the discussion beforehand. I didn't know if I couldn't tell by our text if you were ready to tell the story on the show based upon our texts and everything. And you told your story so well, and you should be really proud of yourself, because this is gonna help a lot of people, I think.
Well, and I hope it does. And, you know, people are just, I can't really even talk to some of my friends now, because they'll say things that are really offensive, like, oh, you just need to get over it. Like, that's the worst thing you could tell a victim of any sort of abuse, is, oh, you just need to get over it. And, you know, one of the other things that aggravates me, well, didn't you know this about him before you got married? None of those things really matter.
Yeah, it's not relevant.
It doesn't matter. It's totally irrelevant. And they don't understand the cycles, because they can't relate to this. I really feel like the people that can relate to this are the ones who have lived it, and there is no shame in it. And I totally get why people are stuck and why they can't leave, and
why they don't, and sometimes why they don't say anything. You know, why you know, just.
Chad, look why people don't say anything. I mean, the man, so the morning I'm supposed to testify against him. Now, I haven't made up my mind. I haven't decided if I'm going to or not. A part of me, and that's what's so confusing, a part of you loves this person still, and a part of you recognizes they're hurting you. And you're having very conflicting emotions, and you feel crazy because they've made you that way. And so it's the morning I'm supposed to testify. He hadn't been staying at our home. He'd been staying with his mother 30 minutes away. I'd worked 2 jobs, got home at like 1 a.m, and guess who's laying in my bed? He is. And I'm in the shower, and he tries to love bomb me. Baby, I've missed you. I haven't seen you. Well, how convenient 8 hours before the hearing, right? But by this point, I have at least a little bit of knowledge of what he's doing. I haven't put a label on it. I haven't put a love bombing label on it. I just know something, like he's just trying to butter me up. Long story short, he gets enraged. When I don't assure him that I'm not testifying in a few hours, he gets enraged. And one of the things, recognizing he was a rageaholic. That was a term I never really heard a lot either. And so he would go into these rages that were very, very scary. So he goes into this rage. I get up out of bed. I'm like, I'm going to go stay at my dad's. And I go to the dresser to pull out a few clothes, and he gets in front of me. Rageaholic and false imprisonment. It's just never ending. And what he does is he grabs me by my hair. He grips it. He's using it as a grip. And he pulls my head back slightly. And he puts his face on my face. I don't know if people can visualize this, but his face is on my face. That's how angry he is. And he's telling me what a piece of shit I am and how worthless I am and how I've ruined his life. It's all my fault, of course. And I'm crying. My mouth is open. And he tilts his head slightly, and his lower lip goes into my mouth just a little bit. Chad, what do you think I did to this guy? I bit him. Mm-hmm. I bit him. He has me in a restraint. His face is on my face. His lip goes into my mouth. I bite him. No, it's nothing severe. It's not a severe injury. I just want him to let me go. I want to set myself free from him, and I want to leave the house. So he throws me off of him, pushes me off of him, whatever, and he calls 911. 911, my wife assaulted me. And he hangs up the phone, and I'm just sitting there calm as a cucumber. I'm like, well, that was stupid. I'm like, now you're going to go to jail and be on the news again. No, that's not what happened. So please get there. And I tell him what happened. I'm like, I'm supposed to be testifying in a few hours. I'm like, he restrained me, had his face on my face, wouldn't let my head go, wouldn't let me out of the house, and I bit him. And, it didn't require any medical attention. It was just a superficial wound. Chad, he literally falsified a police report. He told them he didn't touch me, and I just came up and bit him. So this has been the part that I'm having a hard time discussing with people because it's just so unbelievable. It's so humiliating. Dramatic. I've never been to jail in my life. Who do you think they arrested?
You.
Me.
Yeah.
Being abused by this monster for 6 months wasn't enough. This is how sick he is. He victimized me again, and then just really added the trauma. And as the people are on their way, the police are on their way. He's like, now, bitch, you get to see what it's like to go to jail, and now you'll see what it's like to lose your job. Well, I didn't lose my job, not even close. Doesn't affect patient care. But the point being, I told on him, and he retaliated. Mm-hmm. And it did become very scary, and it really could have impacted my life. And I'm glad that I did get out relatively unscathed, but it did require leaving the state. So yeah, that was something too to have to deal with now. And it takes your identity away. That's something I've been kind of dealing with too. Is sometimes I feel like I don't know who I am anymore. So that was really scary to me that an officer could do that. And I did call internal affairs, and I requested that they give him a polygraph. I don't know if they did or not. But yeah, it was very traumatic. And that's my story. And I wish I would have had a hidden camera in the house. Had I had a camera in the house, it would have seen what had happened. And so when you're dealing with someone like this, these are things you have to think of. And, the charges got dismissed, but it was still very scary. And I did have to sit in a holding cell for about 8 hours. And that's when I got out. I'm like, I've got to get out of here. When a police officer starts falsifying police reports, that becomes very, very scary. Mm-hmm. So I got out, and here I am.
And here you are.
Here I am.
And I just want to thank you for sharing your story with us today and being part of the show. And for everyone out there who's listening, I think you can learn a lot from this story. It's a tale. It's a made for a TV. It's a movie, like a movie. This stuff kind of only happens in the movies, or people see it only in the movies. And this is your real life. And I wish you nothing but the best. But hopefully we'll keep in touch and find out more as your story kind of unfolds and where you are in your healing process later. But besides that, I just once again thank you for being on the show, and that is it. So everyone out there, you'll probably now hear me say a little bit extra after this to discuss this conversation. And now I'm just blabbering. So good night. And that was Leyla's story. And as I said at the beginning, it's one of those stories that is so hard to believe. It's hard to believe if it was not true. And if you saw it in the movie, you'd probably be like, this kind of stuff doesn't happen. But you know what? It does. And this is her life, and she's still in it and still living in it. She's trying to get to the other side, but she probably won't be able to get to that healing process until the whole court case and everything is settled, and until like an official divorce occurs, when she'll finally be able to really get onto the actual healing process. But she told her story very well, and she should be very proud of herself. I had, as I said in the actual conversation, I did have reservations bring her on the show because I didn't know what her tone of voice was going to be, and I didn't want her triggering all of you guys. And the worst thing could happen is, yes, everyone deserves to have their story told, but at the same time, I have a responsibility to the listeners not to trigger all of you and send you into some sort of spiral. So she did a really good job. She was very calm in telling her story, and she's a fighter, and she's going to keep on fighting, and hopefully we'll have her on again to find out what happens in the aftermath and how her life is going, which I want to do with everyone who's been on the show to find out some updates, which is why we built also the Reddit forum for ourselves. So besides that, tell your friends to listen to our show. If you know someone that needs to listen to our show, tell them to come and take a listen. In a couple weeks, we'll have an episode we're recording with a lawyer who specializes in domestic abuse. So if you have questions for her, come to the forum on Reddit. Ask your questions on there. I'll put them all on a piece of paper to give to her, and we'll go from there. So a lot of people that might not be able to afford some it's expensive just one legal question that you might have. She'll be able to answer it for you. Give us some 5-star ratings. Tell your friends. We're on Stitcher. We're on iTunes. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Google Podcasts. We're on everything. And we started opening like our own little store to buy shirts that I've been making. Some of them are good, some of them are not. One shirt that I made is actually up, which is actually a drawing that I made in a podcast that we've done. It will be out next week, which was a kind of an art therapy experiment podcast, and that one was I really enjoyed that. It was pretty interesting to do. We talked while We were drawing, a regular conversation happened. I learned a lot about myself and things that I was struggling with. But now, again, I am always rambling. So I will just bid everyone adieu. Hope you have a great week until we meet again later in the week when I'll release the therapist show with all of your questions. So thank you for listening to the How to Survive the Narcissist Apocalypse podcast. I am Chad the Impaler, and you have a good night.
This is an emergency broadcast transmission. This is not a test. This is an emergency broadcast transmission. This is not a test.